So I'd like to know where you got the notion.
Here are 12 songs that were never supposed to happen. Billions of plays, laughed at by the people who made them. Every single one started as a throwaway, a joke, or something the artists themselves called stupid. The biggest R&B and funk hits you've ever danced to. The people who made them were laughing while they recorded, until the world proved them wrong. 12 songs that weren't supposed to be hits, but refused to stay down.
All of a sudden I begin to change.
Number 12, Jungle Boogie by Kool and the Gang. That voice you know from every party, every movie soundtrack, every moment when funk takes over. The guy screaming "Get Down" wasn't even in the band.
Get down, get down, get down, get
Don Boyce was the roadie, the equipment guy, the person who set up the stage and packed the van.
down, get down, get down, get down.
But in 1973, when Kool and the Gang needed someone to deliver those wild, grunting vocals, they grabbed the nearest body with a microphone. That body happened to carry their instruments for a living. Ronald Bell wrote the music. The label wanted them to capitalize on Soul Makosa's success. They needed something primal, something that hit you in the chest before your brain could process it. Here's what most people don't realize. They recorded Jungle Boogie, Hollywood Swinging, and Funky Stuff all in the same night. 3 classics, 1 session. The song barely has lyrics, just Jungle Boogie, repeated endlessly over a groove that feels like it's chasing you through the streets. It shot to number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100. Number 2 R&B, over 1 million copies sold. 20 years later, it showed up in Pulp Fiction and introduced an entirely new generation to a track that was essentially an improvised jam session. The Beastie Boys sampled it. Madonna sampled it. Producers are still mining that groove 5 decades later. Sometimes the simplest ideas, the ones that sound like they took 10 minutes, are the ones that refuse to die. Number 11, Shake Your Booty by Casey and the Sunshine Band, 1976. How many times can you say one word in a number 1 hit and still make it work? 96 times. Harry Wayne Casey and Rick Finch were watching dance floors in Miami. They'd already conquered the charts twice with Get Down Tonight, and That's the Way I Like It. The formula was working, so they decided to push it past the breaking point. They literally wrote instructions. Shake your booty. That's the entire concept.
Shake, 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 shake your booty.
No metaphor, no poetry, no hidden meaning. The word shake appears 96 times in under 4 minutes. It's still the only number 1 song in history to repeat a single word 4 times in its title. Music critics hated it. Too simple, they said. Radio programmers called it nonsense. Casey and the Sunshine Band weren't trying to impress critics. They were trying to make your body move before your brain could object. Number 1 on both pop and R&B charts, 3 weeks at the top of R&B. Here's why it endured. The song doesn't require context. It doesn't need explanation. 50 years from now, 100 years from now, people will still understand exactly what it means. If you've ever watched someone who never dances suddenly hit the floor when that beat drops, you've witnessed the power of refusing to overcomplicate things. Sometimes the joke is on anyone who thinks music needs to be sophisticated to be great. Number 10, Brick House by the Commodores, 1977. Lionel Richie's mother couldn't face her church friends because of this song. The Commodores needed one more track to finish their album in 1977. They'd recorded smooth ballads like Easy, but they needed edge, something with teeth. Guitarist William King went home to write. He fell asleep trying to think of ideas. When he woke up, there was a notepad on his chest.
This is how the story goes. She knows she's got everything.
His wife, Shirley Hannah King, had written lyrics while he slept. Those lyrics were based on one of the crudest expressions in the English language, built like a brick house. She cleaned it up to Brick House Mighty Mighty, but everyone knew exactly what it meant. The band didn't think much of it. Too simple, almost vulgar. It was just filler to balance the slower material. Lionel Richie's mother was mortified. She told him she was embarrassed to see her friends. That simple, vulgar adjacent song, number 5 pop, number 4 R&B, and it outlasted nearly everything else they recorded that year. Rob Zombie covered it with Lionel Richie himself in 2003. The crude joke survived longer than the serious art. Shirley Hannah King understood something the critics missed. When that bass line hits and Walter Orange starts screaming, nobody's thinking about poetry. They're thinking about moving. The song everyone dismissed became the one everyone remembers. Ask anyone who was at a party in '77, they remember Brick House. Number 9, Car Wash by Rose Royce, 1976. Norman Whitfield wrote one of the biggest disco hits of the '70s on a fried chicken bag during a basketball break. By 1976, Whitfield had already become Motown royalty. I heard it through the grapevine. War, Papa was a Rolling Stone. The man was a legend, so when director Michael Schultz asked him to write a soundtrack for a comedy about people washing cars, Whitfield wasn't exactly thrilled, but he needed money for his new label, so he said yes. Problem was, he couldn't figure out how to make a car wash sound interesting. He sat with it for weeks. Nothing clicked. Then one day at the studio, the band went outside to shoot basketball during a break. Whitfield stayed inside eating fried chicken and watching through the window. Suddenly it hit him. He grabbed the greasy paper bag his chicken came in and started scribbling. A song about a place where the boss doesn't mind if you act a fool, where you might meet someone special, where the rhythm mimics the actual machinery. He wanted the music to sound like a car wash, repetitive, mechanical, hypnotic. Rose Royce's debut single went straight to number 1. Pop chart, R&B chart, number 1 on both. The soundtrack won a Grammy. A song born on trash during a timeout became the biggest hit of Norman Whitfield's post-Motown career. Here's what separates the great ones. Even their throwaway work has genius in it. They can't help themselves. That hook you've sung 1,000 times, it was born on a greasy paper bag. Number 8, The Rubber Band Man by the Spinners, 1976. The co-writer told the producer the lyrics were plain dumb. He recorded it anyway. Tom Bell was one of the architects of the Philadelphia sound.
Hey, y'all, prepare yourself for the rubber band.
He'd already produced 5 number 1 R&B hits for the Spinners, but by 1976, they needed a crossover pop breakthrough. Bell had an idea, a deeply personal one. His son Mark was being teased at school for being overweight. Other kids called him the Fat Man.
Guaranteed to blow your mind.
Bell wanted to change how his son saw himself, so he wrote a song about a big guy who was the life of the party. The person everyone waited for, because when he showed up, things got started.
Never seen him move. You ought to see him groove.
He brought in his songwriting partner Linda Creed to help with the melody. She thought the lyrics were ridiculous. A song about a large dancing man with a walking cane.
Lose control.
The Spinners were known for sophisticated soul. This felt like a novelty track. Bell didn't care. He changed the title to The Rubber Band Man and choreographed an actual dance routine involving rubber bands.
Playing all that music, yeah, keeping time.
The song Creed called Dumb Hit number 2 on the Hot 100 stayed there for 3 weeks, topped the R&B chart, became one of the Spinners' biggest hits.
Hand me down my walking cane, hand me down.
Decades later, it showed up in Avengers, Infinity War, and introduced itself to millions of people who weren't even born when it came out.
Guaranteed to blow your mind so high you won't come down.
Here's what gets me. Tom Bell wrote this for his son, to make a bullied kid feel better about himself. The silly lyrics were the entire point.
My hat, hurry now and don't be late.
He wanted to celebrate people who don't fit the mold, but light up the room anyway. Sometimes the songs that sound simplest carry the deepest love.
Alright, once I went to hear him play at a club.
Real talk, only 1% of you watching this right now are actually subscribed. We spend days digging through archives, tracking down these stories, making sure every fact hits right. Because this music deserves to be remembered the way it actually happened. You're here because you love these stories. So here's the deal. Hit that subscribe button. It's free. Takes 2 seconds. And it tells YouTube to show this to more people who care about real music history like we do. Let's build something here. 1% isn't gonna cut it. All right, back to the countdown. Number 7, Play That Funky Music by Wild Cherry, 1976. A heckler yelled at a white rock band. They wrote it down. It became their only hit. Wild Cherry was a hard rock cover band from Ohio. By 1975, disco was swallowing everything and their gigs were disappearing. Nobody wanted Led Zeppelin covers when they could be dancing. Rob Parisi, the band's leader, tried convincing his bandmates to play more dance music. They resisted. They didn't want to be labeled a disco band.
So much better. It's so much better. I'm funky.
One night at the 2001 club in Pittsburgh, playing for a predominantly black audience, someone shouted at them during a break, "Are you white boys gonna play some funky music?" Parisi didn't get offended. He grabbed a pen and a drink order pad and wrote down exactly what was happening to them. A rock band forced to evolve or die. The song was completely autobiographical. Once I was a boogie singer playing in a rock and roll band. It was self-deprecating, almost a joke about their own desperation. When they recorded it, the band was terrified of those lyrics. "Play that funky music, white boy." Parisi's own father told him to take it out. Label executives were worried. Parisi refused to change a single word. That self-aware, almost mocking track went to number 1 on both pop and R&B charts. Billboard named Wild Cherry Best Pop Group of the Year. A Grammy nomination followed. They were performing at the Grammys within months of being heckled at a club. They never had another hit. Wild Cherry became the textbook definition of a one-hit wonder. But what a way to go. A song born from embarrassment, from being forced to adapt, from a moment of humiliation turned into defiance. If you've ever had to reinvent yourself, if you've ever been told you don't belong and decided to make yourself belong anyway, this song was written for you. The heckle became the legend.
Quickly. Yes, I did.
Number 6, Disco Duck by Rick Dees, 1976.
Flapping my arms, I begin to cluck.
This man got fired from his radio job for mentioning his own song. 5 days later, it was number 1 in America. Rick Dees was a morning DJ in Memphis. Not a musician, a disc jockey who made people laugh between records.
Look at me, I'm the disc.
In 1976, disco was everywhere and Dees thought it was ready for parody. He met a guy at his gym who could do a perfect duck voice. That was enough inspiration. Dees wrote Disco Duck in a single day. A novelty song about disco with a quacking Donald Duck-style voice over a legitimate groove. It was intentionally absurd, the kind of thing you'd expect to play once as a gag and forget. He released it on a tiny Memphis label founded by Estelle Axton, the Axe in Stax Records. The song started catching fire in the South, but Dees wasn't allowed to play it on his own show. Station management said it was a conflict of interest. Rival Memphis stations wouldn't touch it either, afraid of promoting the competition. So Disco Duck was a regional hit that couldn't get played in its own city. On October 11th, 1976, Dees mentioned the song on air. Didn't play it, just mentioned it. His station fired him. 5 days later, Disco Duck hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Number 15 R&B, over 4 million copies sold. Won a People's Choice Award.
All of a sudden I begin to change.
The song even appeared in Saturday Night Fever, though Dees' manager made the catastrophic decision to keep it off the soundtrack album.
Flapping my arms, I begin to cluck.
Rick Dees got a new job at the rival station. They let him play his song all he wanted. He went on to become one of the most famous DJs in the country, hosting the weekly Top 40 for decades. A joke song. A duck voice from a guy at the gym. A firing that happened right before the biggest moment of his career. If that's not proof the universe has a sense of humor, nothing is. Number 5, Troglodyte, Caveman, by the Jimmy Castor Bunch, 1972. Jimmy Castor made a funk song about cavemen hitting women with clubs. It went top 10 and became a hip-hop sampling goldmine. Jimmy Castor was a serious musician. Started as a doo-wop singer in the 50s, played saxophone, wrote songs for Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers.
Swimming away from you and stuff. This one woman just...
The man had legitimate credentials, but in 1972, he decided to do something completely unhinged. Troglodyte opens with Castor telling a story about prehistoric times, about a caveman who sees a woman and, well, the original lyrics were even wilder than what made it to radio. He hits her with a club, drags her by the hair. The whole caveman stereotype set to the funkiest groove imaginable, and he introduces Bertha Butt, one of the Butt sisters. This should not have worked. It was a novelty record wrapped in a serious funk arrangement. The spoken word intro was theatrical, almost comedic. Critics didn't know what to make of it.
It was one of the Butt sisters. He didn't care. He said...
The song peaked at number 6 on the Hot 100. Number 4, R&B. Over 500,000 copies sold, certified gold, and it became one of the most sampled songs in hip-hop history.
It was Bertha. Bertha.
That funky breakdown. Producers have been chopping it up for decades. The caveman joke became the foundation for countless beats. Jimmy Castor kept Bertha Butt alive too. She came back in 1975 for the Bertha Butt Boogie, a whole character universe born from a novelty track.
Just reach in and grab one. He'd say, "Come here."
If you've ever thought your silliest idea wasn't worth pursuing, remember this. A song about cavemen dragging women became a hip-hop sampled treasure chest. Sometimes you have to let yourself be ridiculous to make something timeless.
Let's take the average caveman at home.
Number 4, Kung Fu Fighting by Carl Douglas, 1974.
Those kids were fast as lightning.
That's all it took to record one of the best-selling singles of all time. Carl Douglas was a Jamaican-born session singer living in London. His producer Biddu was British Indian. They were working on a song called I Want to Give You My Everything, written by the same guy who wrote Rhinestone Cowboy. That was supposed to be the hit, but they needed something for the B-side. Biddu asked Douglas if he had any lyrics lying around. Douglas showed him a few scraps. One was about the kung fu movie craze sweeping through theaters. Bruce Lee had just changed everything. Enter the Dragon was massive. Biddu picked that one. They had 10 minutes of studio time left, 2 takes. That's all they recorded, and because it was just a B-side, Biddu went completely over the top. The whoos and ha's, the chopping sounds, the campy oriental riff. He later said it was a B-side throwaway. Who was going to listen? He didn't take any of it seriously. 11 million copies sold. #1 in 12 countries. #1 on both the Billboard Hot 100 and the Soul Singles chart. One of the best-selling singles in recorded music history. A song recorded in 10 minutes, never meant to be heard, with sound effects the producer added as a joke. Carl Douglas and Biddu created something from almost nothing. Neither was Chinese. Neither knew much about martial arts. They just saw what was happening in culture and threw something together in the time it takes to eat lunch. And it worked beyond anyone's wildest imagination. If you've ever sung Everybody Was Kung Fu Fighting at the top of your lungs without knowing any of this, you're not alone. That B-side joke became immortal. Number 3, I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor, 1978. Wait, you're probably thinking, I Will Survive wasn't a joke. It's one of the most powerful anthems ever written. You're right. But here's what you don't know. It was the B-side. Nobody at the label thought it would be a hit. The A-side was a song called Substitute. That was supposed to be the single. DJs started flipping the record over. They kept playing I Will Survive instead. The label hadn't even promoted it. Gloria Gaynor was recovering from back surgery when it was recorded. She was in so much pain, she had to record some of the vocals lying down. The song almost didn't get finished. The label didn't think it was commercial enough. Too slow at the beginning, too dramatic. Who wants to hear a breakup song that takes that long to build? Turns out everyone. It went to #1. Won a Grammy for Best Disco Recording. Became an anthem for survival, resilience, and refusing to stay down. All because DJs ignored the A-side and played what they felt instead. The song the label didn't believe in became one of the most enduring hits in music history. Number 2, Super Freak by Rick James, 1981.
She likes the boys in the band.
Rick James wrote this song as a joke. His exact words, he made it so white people would have something to dance to.
Says that I'm her all-time favorite.
By 1981, Rick James was already a funk innovator. Mary Jane, You and I, Give It to Me Baby. Serious music, deep grooves. The kind of artistry that made him a legend in the R&B community.
Super freaking out. Everybody.
But the Street Songs album was almost done, and he needed one more track. James threw it together quickly. He told Musician magazine in 1983, I was in the studio and everything else was done. I just put Super Freak together really quickly. I wanted a silly song that had a bit of new wave texture to it. He added an operatic vocal structure as a joke. He wasn't taking any of it seriously. The lyrics were risque. She's a very kinky girl, the kind you don't take home to mother.
I really like the taste every time we meet.
Alonzo Miller, a radio DJ friend, heard an early version and told James it was too dirty for radio. James cleaned it up slightly and gave Miller a co-writing credit for the help.
Super freak, the kind of girl you read about.
Even after the changes, some stations hesitated. MTV refused to play the video because they weren't playing black artists at the time. James fought back publicly. Despite everything, Super Freak became his biggest pop hit.
She's a very kinky.
Number 16 on the Hot 100. Number 3 R&B. Number 1 on the dance chart for 3 weeks.
Once you get her off the street.
Grammy nominated, but here's where the story transcends James himself. In 1990, MC Hammer sampled that bass line for Can't Touch This. The sample was so prominent that James got a songwriting credit.
Girl, that kind you won't take home to mother.
When Can't Touch This won the Grammy for Best R&B Song in 1991, Rick James won too. His joke song earned him his only Grammy. Rick James passed away in 2004. The Chappelle Show sketches made him a household name again, but not always for the right reasons.
I really love to take.
What people forget is that this was a musical genius, a man who could write and produce hits in his sleep. Super Freak was him goofing off for 3 minutes. And that's the track that outlived everything else.
Every time we meet, she's alright.
That's the one still playing at every wedding, every party, every moment when people want to let loose. The joke became the legacy. Number 1, Rock the Boat by the Hughes Corporation, 1974. The number 1 spot goes to a song that almost destroyed the group that made it. The Hughes Corporation was formed in 1969.
She's thrilled me like the rush of the wind.
They wanted to be a serious vocal group, sophisticated harmonies, meaningful lyrics, respect from the industry.
Let me drift away, my dear, when love can see me through.
Rock the Boat was written by Wally Holmes. The label pushed them to record it, even though the group hated it. They thought it was too simple, too gimmicky, too focused on the beat instead of the vocals. The label released it anyway. It went to number 1 in 1974, stayed there for 1 week, sold over 2 million copies, became one of the earliest disco hits to top the pop chart.
Don't rock the boat, baby. Rock the boat.
The Hughes Corporation was furious. This lightweight dance track became their signature when they'd worked for years to be taken seriously as artists. They resented the song's success. They felt it cheapened everything they'd built. Internal tensions grew. The group eventually broke up, partly because of disagreements about musical direction stemming from Rock the Boat's success. The song they hated gave them the biggest moment of their careers and simultaneously planted the seeds of their destruction. Decades later, Rock the Boat is still remembered, still played, still moving bodies on dance floors around the world. The Hughes Corporation wanted respect. They got immortality instead. Sometimes the universe gives you exactly what you need, not what you asked for.
How in the world can I keep my seed?
12 songs, roadies, fried chicken bags, hecklers, B-sides, and jokes that wouldn't die. Every single one of these tracks was dismissed by someone. Too simple, too silly, too cheap. Not serious enough, and every single one outlasted the so-called serious music of their era. Maybe that's the lesson. The songs that last aren't always the ones that try the hardest. Sometimes they're the ones that let go and trust the groove. The next time you hear one of these classics, remember, someone thought it was garbage. Someone laughed while making it.
When the music stopped, I returned to my seat.
Someone said it would never work. And then the world danced anyway. This is R&B Grove. Thanks for watching.
I look.
Why look?